You're watching The Good Front End Show, a podcast that gives you a weekly dose of inspiration and insights from GFAD's technology leaders and engineers. Join us as we explore ideas that enable technologists, marketers, and organizations create successful commerce storefronts. Let's begin.
Hi, my name is Karl. Welcome back to the Good Front End Show. Today we're going to be talking about DXP, DXCP, API orchestration, and BFF. Why do you think it's important to discuss DXCP in relation to composable?
DXCP, digital, which stands for Digital Experience Composition Platform, I think. It's a new category that was coined by Gartner, and it is something that is for sure confusing to a lot of people. If I count the amount of questions I had about this DXCP thing, even before it got coined, I'd probably make at least £100 because it's just so confusing. And depending on which context you're coming from, it just doesn't make any sense.
How is DXCP different from DXP?
It's important to understand DXP first before we start moving into the ideas that came about as part of composable. DXP, which stands for Digital Experience Platform, is things like, maybe more tangible examples are like Adobe Experience Manager, or Bloomreach, or Sitecore, or Episerver. Now, if people are familiar with these platforms, the idea is that this is like a unified platform that allows you to control the digital experience in one place. So, for example, DXP would have the ability for you to manage content via CMS. It has the ability for you to personalize that content. It has the ability for you to analyze the data that is happening in your digital experience. And it has the ability for you to experiment and conduct multivariate testing. And it also has the capability perhaps to integrate social media platforms and your commerce data or product data from a product information management system or from a commerce API. So that's DXP. The idea is you provide this one single unified tool to your marketer for them to craft the digital experience, if you like.
Can you enable, disable features there that let's say, because you said like one solution, right? So what if like you don't need some of those solutions? Are you able to customize things in the DXP?
The idea of DXP is that it's not a customizable solution. The idea is everything is out of the box. Things just work.
So is this where DXCP come in? Because it's more like, would you say customizable or composable in that sense, as opposed to DXP having just a one solution?
Yes, is the simple answer. Composable in general comes in because monolithic architecture, this one size solution, if you like, is not very flexible. So the idea of composable is that you break all these different aspects of your application and you integrate it yourself to create a best of breed solution. So for example, some DXPs might be good at content management system, but they might not necessarily be good at personalization. And so what you want to do is, I only want to use that content management system, but I want to use this emerging product to be able to do personalization. However, that doesn't necessarily work for the vendor, right? And so the organization who is consuming this DXP loses out. So then the idea, when you come to composable, is that you can put together your own best of breed APIs to create your digital experience, if you like. So, for example, you can choose a headless CMS to provide the content, and then you combine that with a personalization engine to be able to do personalization, and then maybe you use the same engine to do multivariate testing, or you use another tool, and then you connect also a customer data platform to handle your segmentation and so on. So the idea of composable is that you compose all of these APIs in one place. And if I understand correctly, DXCP is meant to almost like bring the traditional DXP, but it enables you to bring in your own CMS, bring in your own personalization engine, bring in your own commerce data provider, and you do it in this single unified platform.
So that's the idea of bringing all these tools together is what you call DXCP, as opposed to DXP having only one solution all in one product. DXCP is like having all several products with different solutions in one composed solution.
I think that's what it is, if I understand correctly. But it's still quite confusing. Of course, even I get confused because I don't necessarily believe, if you like, I don't necessarily believe that it does what it says it does.
Is it because it's not different from API orchestration or BFF? It's almost the same?
Yeah, exactly. I think the idea of DXCP is a bit like API orchestration and BFFs, but you just write less code to orchestrate. The problem I have with the concept as DXCP is that it almost like it forces you to do your orchestration through this platform, but it might not necessarily be the right thing to do. So let me give you a specific example. For example, if you are using a search API, and this search API provides an SDK, and this search API already solves the problem of regional caching. So it creates, some search APIs do this. They create a distributed search network, and they already solve the problem of caching. And they provide you an SDK for you to be able to do it. It makes a lot more sense to use their SDK over integrating the search API to a DXCP. One, it takes a lot less work. Two, it's more efficient. And three, it's more performant. Four, the experience is just much, much better. And fifthly, they already solved everything, so it's cheaper for the customer. So I'm not entirely sure where DXCP fits in that regard because it's not helpful. And a lot of these APIs are already thinking in that manner, whereby they're already thinking about the end-to-end experience, and they're providing customers SDKs for them to be able to integrate their products directly to the storefront in a way that is efficient and good.
If that's the case, if we already have all these SDKs and APIs already good by themselves, is there anything that's good from using any DXCP?
And that's also the question I have, to be honest. It seems like, I don't want to be harsh, but it's like solving a problem that existed 2 years ago, which a lot of the vendors knew they had, and they solved it through SDKs. I tried to dig in a little bit on this. Why do you need a DXCP? And I read a few blogs as to why people are creating this solution. And one of the things that struck me is flexibility. So one provider of DXCP described it like this, whereby the composition of the APIs is so rigid, whereby it's not flexible. And I thought to myself, man, I've done at least 5 composable projects, and I've never had this issue of rigid composability. So to me, that's more a problem of the people who did the integration as opposed to the concept and architecture of composability. So DXCP does not resonate to me as a solution to a problem because I don't think I've ever experienced a problem in the first place. So to answer your question, is there any point? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, personally, I wouldn't use it. But I could be wrong. There could be something. And maybe I just need to learn more about it. I did my best to sit on a demo to listen to what this thing does, but I honestly don't get the point. The only time that I understood what it's about was when I started talking to another developer who worked for another company, and I tried to listen on how they integrated the headless CMS. And I can totally see why a DXCP would be helpful to them because it would make the integration more flexible.
Is that where the difference boils down to? The integration part? Say like with the headless CMS, isn't there already like an API specification on how to integrate this? SDK is provided, and then you go to DXCP, is also different. How is it implemented differently?
I think you're right. DXCP is like an architectural opinion. It's an architectural opinion which sort of provides railings on how to integrate headless CMS. Maybe it just means that the chances of you doing it wrong is lesser.
With DXCP?
With DXCP, maybe. But like I said, it's like a problem. It's like solving a problem that was present 2 years ago that is no longer present now, and definitely will be less and less so as the years go by. Because the CMS itself and the other APIs themselves will create SDKs as they learn more about customer problems to prevent those things from happening. I'm always so surprised how creative developers can be that I completely understand from the vendor's perspective. You'd think that it wouldn't go wrong. Have you seen that video meme whereby you've got the toys that kids play with, whereby there's like shapes, and there's like a star shape and there's like a square shape, and you kind of slot it in. Yeah. And you'd think that people would take the square shape, stick it in the square slot, shape. Right? Star shape, stick it in the star slot. But what some people do is almost like take a star shape and put it on the square slot just because it fits. And I think that is what's happening with a lot of headless CMS integration sometimes, that people are just doing it wrong, And DXCP is like creating a guardrails for those. Yeah. But to me, that doesn't make any sense. That is more, the issue there more is a lack of competency to the people that are integrating the APIs, as opposed to the issue being the headless CMS or a lack of architecture around it.
And I guess it limits the creativity of that developer that's integrating.
Exactly. I think that's the key issue with DXCP. You almost take back composable to that old world of DXP, whereby you can only do things one way. And that is the problem, isn't it? In one part of the scale, you have a very constrained architecture. And on another part of the scale, in the composable world, you've got a very flexible architecture. But what you want is somewhere in the middle. The problem is you can't have everything, right? And this is where architecture comes into play. You really need to think through integrations rather than just sticking everything everywhere, and which is the key problem with composable projects now that are happening. They are simply integrated wrongly. But in my opinion, all people need to do is read the documentation.
And having the right team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we cannot discount the importance of people at the end of the day. The people implementing the composable project is key to success, no doubt. Well, in any project that you're trying to do, having the right people is the key to success.